Big Run has just ended and as usual started several topics on the game mode and overfishing, whether it was fun, good, or that it was completely unfair, and also the controversial take that overfishers are ruining big runs by raising the high scores to unattainable levels for the majority. So I decided to make this video to talk about all of this and finally clear up how big run results really work and try to debunk some of the really negative takes. And so I'll talk about 3 topics in this specific order of how exactly does the big run pyramid works, why overfishers are not affecting your enjoyment whatsoever at all, and why the scores went up so drastically this time around. If you're also interested in what it takes to perform better at Big Run, I also have several videos on the topic you can check out on my channel and also subscribe to for regular Salmon Run content. As you know, Big Run has a special reward structure where Nintendo rewards the participating players based on a score tier system that separates the top 5%, the top 20%, top 50%, and the rest of the players into 4 different groups and awards the same badges and chosen trophy of the Big Run in different colors based on your performance. I won't go into details if this is a good system or not, only really quickly that I think it was a terrible choice from Nintendo to divide the community in the cooperative mode that needed more support and participation in general, and just pit people against one another while Splatfest gives the same rewards to everyone apart from a few sea snails difference. So I find it ridiculous that Salmon Run is promoting the unhealthiest types of competition while the game mode itself is supposed to be about cooperation and support of each other. Competition is fun, but only if it's presented and structured in a way that seems fair to everyone, and even so that Big Run isn't as random and unfair as people think, it absolutely does look and feel like it's unfair, and I actually think it promotes enmity and a skewed outlook of what Salmon Run is, and drives people away from the game mode rather than encourage them to play it more. I would much prefer if it was time-based like Splatfest, so you get rewards if you played Big Run enough, or even better, I think they should be community-based events where you have to split X amount of salmonids or collect Y amounts of golden eggs as the whole community that is being constantly tracked and rewards everyone who participated in the end based on the collective work of everyone together. And if they really wanted to promote a better community, they would make the rewards slightly harder to achieve each time to promote the community helping each other to improve. And I say this as a top 5% player, I would much prefer it. But instead, one of the evidences of the aforementioned negativity is the rise of complaints after every big run that overfishers are ruining the scoreboards and they are the reason the so-called averages are so high on it. But that is completely incorrect and is not how the system or percentages work at all. So let's clear the air around this and explain how it works. I wanted to make my own graphics for this, but Shisei was super kind to lend their infographics to use as an example, so make sure to follow them on Twitter and thank you so much. Their example is attempting to simplify the math of Big Run by using a made-up example list of only 100 participants and showcase that the way percentages work is that the game goes down a list of all players who played Big Run and draws a line after the last person who is in that top 5% and determines the required score based on the results. It isn't the average of the top 5% of the community combined like a lot of people think, but instead the lowest score among all the players who will calculate it to be in the top 5% of Big Run. Let's take a look at another silly example. Assume that only 10,000 people played at least one match of a Big Run. This means the top 5% of this event would be 500 people, so the system draws a line at the 500th person with the highest score, and it is going to be 150 golden eggs as that was their high score. Even if the best players got 240 golden eggs regularly, or let me be silly here, even if there was a cheater with 9 billion eggs as the first place and Nintendo didn't ban them, the top 5% cutoff will still going to be only 150 eggs, as that's what the score was for the 500th player who was the last one calculated into the top 5%. As you can see, it's completely irrelevant what the best players of a certain category achieve. It does not affect the scoreboard at all. And in fact, it's more likely that the casual player base is what determines what the scores are going to look like. The players who are just regular Salmon Run players. Hopefully this helps clear up how the percentages work, but let's move on to the next topic of the video. This is going to be a bit number heavy part of the video, but I'll try my best to stay simple and keep it engaging. Now, even after the previous section, one could argue that, okay, it's not the top players who determine the scores, but it is still unfair because the top 5% players are likely all the elitist players who are in closed discords helping each other and so on and so forth, or that you must be lucky or have a fixed team, otherwise there is no hope. I'm going to be using numbers now that are as accurate as possible and has been either data mined or are available on large Salmon run discords. The combined active users, so the ones who actually check the discords during Big Run, is calculated to be around 8,000 active players thanks to the information gathered by the admins of all the big Salmon run servers. And this number does not represent unique users, which means the actual number is much lower considering many people are part of multiple of these servers, but let's use it for demonstration still. We don't have the exact stats on how many of our players are executive VP ranks, but as a server admin I can say it's possibly around 80% of the server, which is very generous once again and likely higher than reality, so around 6,000 players. And keep in mind, this still doesn't mean all of these players are capable of getting a good high score. Now let's attempt to include the Japanese community too, since Big Run is counted worldwide. And based on just the sale numbers, the Twitter looking for group tweets and general population statistics, their community is roughly 7 times the size, in which case with similar stats and interest, that would make the active social scene of Japanese Salmon Run EVP players around 42,000 large, with a 48,000 worldwide total, unless there is an even more massive difference between the communities. Thanks to Cox, we know that the last Big Run had 1,850,000 players participating in it in total, so we can thankfully calculate that the active social and Discord community of Salmon Run would be roughly around only 2.5% of the whole Big Run event population, which means there's another 46,000 places worldwide and the top 5% for people who aren't even involved in any kind of Salmon Run community at all and are just completely regular players. And remember that this is only if the majority of the Discord community would make it into the top 5%, which is not even close. You can now see not even the overestimated number of the whole Salmon Run social community of executive VP players makes up for the top 5% of Big Run. And I won't even try to calculate the number of Overfishers, which likely would be around less than 0.1% threshold, and make all the complaints about them just look extremely silly. In the end, these are all much overestimated numbers based on actual data we have, and the reality is likely a lot lower than this, as the majority of the EVP players are still not able to reach the top 5% leaderboard, so in practice, this would mean that according to the stats, more than half, possibly the 3/4 of top 5% leaderboard is completely open to regular Salmon Run players who don't even want to participate in any of the social aspects of Splatoon and just play the game. Finally, we arrive to the third topic, which is the question about why did the Big Run high score jump up so dramatically with the last event? And while the chances are there that people get better or the map might have been slightly better, I don't think personally that would result in such a dramatic jump, and instead I'm looking at the player-based population report from Cox that shows the current June Big Run had 913,000 less players participating in it than the last one that happened in March, with 1,850,000 players down from 2,760,000. After we discussed how the leaderboard works, this simply means the top 5% that used to include 138,000 people is now only 92,500 players, which means these category cutoffs also jumped up, likely resulting in the much higher high score bars that we have now. Why there was such a huge drop, we can only speculate. It's also quite natural for games to decrease in player base over time, but we can assume that a large percentage of that are casual players who would possibly contribute with lower high scores to Big Run and increase the amount of us getting better badges. From my point of view, this should be a wake-up call for Nintendo that they should change the system, because what it does essentially is it's punishing their most loyal fan base by making it harder for them to reach their goals they trained for by players leaving Splatoon and increasing the bar for their special events like Big Run, leaving more disappointed players each time the population takes such a big hit. But that's it for this big run talk with me. Hope the video was educational and useful, especially for the original goal, which was to stop the negativity within the community and help you all see how the system actually works, and that the real problem here is Nintendo with their silly decisions and not the overfishing or the social salmon run community preventing you from getting your rewards. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe for more salmon run content, as I also do a lot of guides and such that you might enjoy. But thank you for watching and listening, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you the next time.